needs at the town's resources to vet all of that.
I think we'd have to study this in a great deal of detail to,
Yep, this is only the start.
this is a good,
Andre,
Initial
we already do that now, don't we? Have agreements, like, people pay impact, like, they're gonna do structure, don't we already do that even with just development coming in?
We do it on a really
It wouldn't be at
really a
this
base
level.
level, not at this level though. We haven't entered into a development agreement with anybody because we didn't need to do it. Typically somebody comes in, wants to build a building, they build, they get approval, they go out and do the
The
building.
basic
But
premise.
if we were going to invest in something, as Bill is saying, and in an area, then we want to have that and make sure that if we're going to make this investment, they're going to carry through with their end of the bargain.
The only development agreement that was contemplated during the time that we've been here was for the multifamily development up off of Sanborn Road, which ultimately ended up not being needed because they've basically changed course. The property had already transferred, so there was no need for the development agreement to happen in that case. In a general site plan subdivision type of situation in Londonderry, quote-unquote development agreement is the plan that gets approved by the planning board because that's the terms that they're set and they must meet those terms in order for them to complete the improvements.
but in
That-
that
that-
case, the developer pays for the utility improvements, the roads, the sewers.
To support their
Their
project, if they
section.
have existing.
Yeah.
As an example, in Hooksett, it was brought up that Hooksett, Carabella's was going to come there, but actually that would have been Hooksett's second TIF district. The first one was to locate Target,
Home
Kohl's,
Depot.
and Home Depot, and the others. That was a development agreement was entered into with them to say that if they float the bond to do the work in and around I-93 with the exits and the road improvements and the light that's there and the water, sewer, all the utilities that's needed to make the development a success. In turn, the development agreement they entered into with Target and Home Depot was that you got to build your facilities there. They did it. Everything worked out, and the development is paying what they're supposed to pay.
Well, see,
Secure the
now, it
bond.
would be interesting to know the difference, the captured value in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure that's.
Oh, yeah,
the
that's-
Department of Revenue and the
Yep.
State Planning Office probably has all of that, so.
Something we can put together for, like our information here,
Yeah.
as we.
Yeah, look at how much they bonded and how much they're getting in revenue, and
Right.
see if they met their goals.
In the
Because
time
of it,
period.
they're pulling businesses all around it,
No, yeah.
where they're not putting, because of this small TIF they did, businesses are going up there because it's done.
I know, but it's hard to say whether or not it was a small TIF, because they had an awful lot of improvements that they had to do before they,
Well,
they came
I'm
in.
just saying, okay, $10 million TIF, to them was a small, it was worth the $10 million, and, you
It was
know.
bringing all the other business,
I- I-
3A.
yeah.
and,
Yeah, it
again,
essentially makes the town, the public entity, function as a private investor, which is kind of interesting.
To some
Not that I
degree,
have any
basically,
great
it's still,
objection to
yeah,
it.
still the tax dollars that come from it go to pay for, but it's a partnership.
It is.
It depends on what we want to have happen, or if you want to have something happen versus not have something happen.
Doing good.
Any further questions?
I do think, I just want to throw this out there, it's just a comment, but you mentioned Chicago several times, and in a lot of the papers and research I had done prior to coming to this, a lot of the studies about Chicago, and in fact, one of the most successful TIF projects in the US happened to be in LA, which Chicago modeled after. And so LA and Chicago, the two reasons why they were the most successful was not necessarily how it was negotiated at this level, but really was a community-driven process where people demanded some pretty severe things. So I want to throw that out for everybody to kind of hear, because I don't want everyone to think that it kind of just moves along at this on this kind of easy pace. In fact, the community uproar was so loud for Chicago and LA that they ended up getting improvements for their school, city parks. They got a tremendous number of things that they added in to the agreement. Not only could people not leave in the middle of it without penalties and things like that, but other improvements that they had to bring in. So while the town, or city in this case, had to put forth the money for utilities and improvements, in exchange, within 5 years, so many improvements had to be done to other things within the community to pay back the residents for what they did,
Yeah.
or for putting up that kind of money. So I want to put that out there because I think it's very important that the community understands that they have to
Town.
drive a tremendous amount of what they want to demand for this to be incredibly successful. One of the biggest failures of TIF happens to be the state south of us, which is in Massachusetts. In 1994, ran a TIF that has had zero accountability and has been nothing but a bane in the state ever since. So, and
Which was that?
it was a hotel, had nothing but union problems. It was tremendously, it was terrible. And that's not a slam on unions. It was that they were promised that unions could come in and have certain workers there, and then what the hotel did, and they promised that an X percentage of the people who would be workers at the hotel would be within a 50-mile radius of that hotel. And of course, that didn't happen. And they managed to get out of a lot of deals that they had agreed to. So I just want to throw that out there, that it's, the community is far more essential in a successful TIF than I think we've put out in this presentation. And I just wanted to make that
I
comment.
just did it really reflecting more of a conceptual overview, and really, New Hampshire
this is like
state law does not
informational.
allow you to do a lot of different things. Like in other cities around the country, they require monies to be used for job training, affordable housing projects, child care projects. I mean, I don't believe under the existing New Hampshire state law you would have that type of latitude, but it's something to consider, obviously. You know, there is a big, you know, it's a true partnership. You know, it's a quid pro quo, and if done right, it can be very successful. But again, not being a proponent or opponent of TIF, just to talk about what they're used for, how they've been used, and just to get you to start thinking about that. But it's something that you obviously don't want to take lightly. You want to go into it and you know, spend a lot of time weighing the ups and downs of it.
I think this is going to require, you know, a lot of thought, a lot of thinking, a lot of discussion among the boards, and I think really with the town. You know, the whole intent is to make this a very public process, and we certainly want to hear from people about it. You know, their feelings, and try to put some fact, you know, behind where those feelings lie, and you know, see where things lead to. Anyway.
Was there also one in Derry, a TIF district that was not successful in Derry?
No, actually, the TIF district that that they recently did within the last 5 years was off Ash Street, and that was very successful. Actually, there were 4 lots. There was a piece of land that the town purchased, which they did. What they ended up deeding over to the Derry Economic Development Corp. The agreement with the Economic Development Corp was that they repay the town the $1 million that they paid for the land. And they have done that, and the revenue that's generated from the buildings that are on their facilities right now are paying the bond that funded the infrastructure. So it ended up being pretty good. And Jack Dowd would be a good, or Beth Thompson would be a good resource to contact, you know, just if you have your own curiosity as to how successful that was.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public? Come forward. You have to come to the microphone, Deb, so people can hear you at home, please. And just identify yourself for our official records, please.
Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. I'm a member of the Londonderry Taxpayer Association, and we just had a meeting 2 weeks ago in June, and we had Jack Dowd from the Derry Economic and Development Corps, as well as David Priest from Southern New Hampshire, speaking about TIFs. And one of the things that I just wanted to address, the TIF that was successful in Derry, it was a small TIF, but the Derry Economic Committee came in and bought the land and was committed and was responsible. So it was $2 million, and they said, we guarantee you $1 million of it. So they said no matter what, even if they were to reimburse the town $1 million out of that $2 million, if the TIF was not successful. So that's, you know, something that's kind of an interesting concept, that they had outside agency
Yeah,
that did it.
Derry's a little bit different because they have this kind of a quasi-public, private group that
Well,
really assists the
We
town.
have it too. It's part of Rockingham. It's the Rockingham Economic and Development Corps. We could use them as our liaison through developers and being financially committed to help us do the same thing. Or we could develop our own, which is a nonprofit
Well,
organization.
that's what Derry did. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we've done things ourselves in the past, so.
No, I
And
just,
have been
I
quite
just wanted to
successful
talk,
with it.
they said that the TIF was successful, but the